Good morning. The first reading is from Deuteronomy 26, 1 through 11. When you have come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, and you possess it and settle in it, you shall take some of the first fruit of all the fruit of the ground, which you harvest from the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And you shall put it in a basket and go to the place that the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name. You shall go to the priest who is in office at the time and say to him, "Today I declare to the Lord your God that I have come into the land that the Lord swore to our ancestors to give us." When the priest takes the basket from your hand and sets it down before the altar of the Lord your God, you shall make this response before the Lord your God. A wandered Aramean was my ancestor. He went down into Egypt and lived there as an alien, few in number, and there he became a great nation, mighty and populous. When the Egyptians treated us harshly and afflicted us by imposing hard labor on us, we cried to the Lord, and the God of our ancestors. The Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction, our toil and our oppression. The Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with a terrifying display of power and with signs and wonders. And he brought us into this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So now I bring the first of the fruit of the ground that you, O Lord, have given me. You shall set it down before the Lord your God and bow down before the Lord your God. Then you, together with the Levites and the aliens who reside among you, shall celebrate with all the bounty that the Lord your God has given to you and to your house. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God. The second reading is from John 6, 25 to 35. When they found Jesus on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures for the eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For it is on him that God the Father has set the seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him who he has sent." So they said to him, "What sign are you going to give us then, so that we may see it and believe you? What work are you performing? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Then Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God. How many of you are preparing for Thanksgiving this week? Anyone hosting? Chase, are you making any food? You can help your mom? Oh, Chase is going to help me a little bit. Come on up, Chase. Just have a seat in the front row. What are our favorite Thanksgiving dishes? What's that? Pumpkin pie. I'm a sweet potato pie guy. Turkey. I have a theory about turkey, but I'm not going to get into that right now. My theory is if we loved turkey, we would cook a big turkey more often than once a year. But anyway, no. Turkey is a good thing. What else we got? Dressing is very good. Stuffing is awesome. What else? Yams, excellent. My favorite is the yams with the marshmallows on top. Yeah. We love food, right? Food is what's that? Cranberries. Very good. We love food, and there's kind of an indulgent aspect of our Thanksgiving meal, but have you thought of food in theological terms? Food is kind of central to both the Old Testament and the New Testament as we read in our readings today, right? this reading from Deuteronomy comes as Moses is preparing the people for the promised land. And they're given a commandment, and hear these words. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess and settle in it, you shall take some of the first fruit of all the ground, which you will harvest from that land that the Lord God is giving you, and you shall put it where? In a basket. And it turns out that according to Jewish tradition, we know what the 7 first fruits were back in the day, the traditional 7 fruits. And I'm going to ask Chase, I'm going to give you a test, so you got to come up here. Do you want to take a guess as to what this is? This is a hint. Wheat, yes, very good. Okay, so can you pour the wheat into this bowl?
All of it?
Yep, all of it. Go for it. Bread. That's right. We're going to put that in the bowl, in the basket. Here's another grain. You might not be able to guess what this is. It starts with a B. Barley. Barley. Very good. You can pour the... Yes, there we go. Thanks to Sprouts. Okay, I'll give you maybe an easy one. What are these? Those are olives. You can dump those in like just a little corner right there. Let's put them right all together. Yep. This is one of the 7 first fruits. Okay. What about these?
I was going to say grapes, but now of course they don't look like grapes.
What are these? Dates. Okay, you can pour those right in that spot right there. Keep them separate from the... We're segregating our fruits. Just... so that... it's like, yeah, it'll help for... What's this? Pomegranate. Very good. Put that there. Good job. 2 out of 5. What about these? This is a hard one. That's a fig. Yeah. So your fig Newtons come from that. You can dump that. Very good. There we go. And I saved the easiest one for last. Grapes. There we go. All right. And now we have a basket of the first fruits. Right? Just take a look here. These are the baskets of the first fruits. Now I want you just to imagine this. These are very wonderful first fruits. How many of you are olive eaters? I'm not an olive eater, but some of you just love your olives. Okay, Chase, you can sit down. Thanks. You can sit wherever you want. Come sit by us today. Sure. There we go. Very good. I want you for a moment to imagine how good these fruits might have tasted. In the reading, it says, you shall take these first fruits and bring them to the priest, and then this is what you shall say to the priest. Today I declare to the Lord your God that I have come into the land that the Lord swore to our ancestors. And you shall say this to the priest. A wandering Aramaean was my ancestor. Do you know who he's talking about there? He's talking about Abraham. And so that harkens us to think back to our histories. Today, as you write down things you're thankful for, it's important to remember where you came from and the histories of your own lives. And the offering of this first fruit involves remembering your history, not just your personal history, but your ancestral history. And the beginning of this refers to Abraham wandering around a land that eventually would become the promised land for them, but a land that they did not possess. Now, probably many of you are homeowners. Some of us rent. But you can imagine, what was it like when you signed your name on the mortgage to buy your first home? Can you remember that? How did that feel? Scary. How did it feel to have your first meal in your first home? Awesome, right? Okay. Now, and for many of us, that has been a long journey to get to that point. Now I want you to imagine yourself like Abraham in our history in Genesis. It even goes further back to a day when they had a beautiful home. Adam and Eve had a beautiful home, right? And did they have to work for their food? It was given to them. And then when they were cast out, they were given one important chastisement or curse. He said, you will have to toil now for your food. You will have to toil for your food. And we can kind of look at this early history as searching for food in many ways, right? So as a nomad, Abraham would walk around into other people's territory, which is always an unsettling thing, always believing in the promise that God gave them, that one day his people and his descendants would have land to call their own. Later on it says, my people were sent to Egypt, where they were slaves. Now this was a particularly galling period because indeed they had to toil, but now they're toiling not for themselves, but for whom? For the man, right? For the Pharaoh, for other people, and they would get the remnants and the scraps. And then as Moses led them out into the desert, some of us were in the desert recently, and we got to see actually the land where Moses and his people lived for these 40 years. This is kind of a vibrant time in the sense that they were given the Torah, the law, the commandments of God and the covenant of God. But it's also a time when, how was the food in the desert? Sparse. So sparse that sometimes they would be raging against God, right? Isn't it true that sometimes if our bellies are filled, it's a lot more easy to live a life of thanksgiving than when it's empty, right? And at times they would have to scrape the manna in the desert off the ground in order to get through the night. And God would provide enough just to eat. Sometimes even the very water was sparse until Moses had to strike the rock. Now, he prepares them to live in the promised land. Now, I want you to picture that first season when they planted the seeds. Probably not like a couple weeks ago we had the image of that Pastor Alicia gave us of God spreading the seeds all over the place, right? Imagine that first crop that they planted had to have been very intentional, hoping and yearning. But much like when you bought your homes, how amazing it must have been felt when in your own land, in your own place, those seeds began to pop up and bring forth fruits. Wow, right? Food. And the commandment is to do what? To bring these first fruits of thanksgiving to God. If I asked you what the 10 Commandments, Chase, I'll put you on a test again. Let's see. Can you try the 10 Commandments? Okay, let's start. I'll start. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods. Number 2. Yep. Number 3. Number 4. Yep. That's a typo, I'm pretty sure. No. Number 5, you shall not murder. You shall not. You shall not. You shall not. And the last 2. Yep, very good. I've simple. Yeah, very good. That's what we think about the law of God. That's what we think about the commandment of God immediately, right? Overlooked is, what is God commanding the people to do right here in Deuteronomy with this command to give the first fruits? He's commanding us to be thankful, right? He's commanding us to be thankful, not just in general, but to be able to name the things that we're thankful for and to give credit to whom? To God. Now, any of us who have lived even a few moments know that we've been on journeys in our lives. Those early ancestors, the Israelites, were on a long journey before that first crop popped up out of the ground. It made me think of some journeys that I thought of just last night as I saw Connie Lerner coming to church, and I saw her license plate. It said Law at 39. Now, Connie was a working mom, worked in a law office as a helper, and raising kids. And at 39, she decided to go to law school and worked through law school, went to night classes, and I'm imagining on the night before she took the bar exam, just as these Israelites are commanded to get, when you get those first fruits, what do? You give thanks to God. That Connie does what? Give thanks to God for the journey that she has gotten through. My mom, same story. She was, when I was in middle school, she took a computer class at the community college. And you know what her grade was, her final grade? I helped her with her homework, by the way. You know what her grade was? An F. She failed it. Now, after failing that class, by the time I got my bachelor's degree, my mom had gotten her master's degree in computer science education. And went on to teach in the Catholic elementary schools for how many years? 18 years she taught computers to children for the next 2 decades of her life. What do we do when we go through journeys in our lives and we get to a point of being able to do something and for God to use us? We do what? We give thanks to God. And we discover that each of us has a basket that we can fill uniquely to ourselves of that which God has given to us. And do we give thanks last or first? First. Today is what? Sunday. It is the first day of the week. And what do we do as Christians? We wake up in the morning and we prepare to come to church on the first day of the week. And we imagine these grains. And I want you to imagine the workers who picked these grains. Maybe it was a machine, I don't know. And I want you to picture these grapes. The amazing thing in the Deuteronomy story is that when they give fruits, at the very end of the story it says that they will celebrate. Last night we got to celebrate the gifts of ministry of Pastor David. And it says, we, our whole families, and the alien residents in our community will all together celebrate because there will be an abundance of food for everybody. Isn't it true that when we live thankfully to God, we go from living a life of scarcity to a life of abundance no matter what we have? And so these grains, somewhere along the line, somebody will take grains in a factory and those workers will turn it into bread. Somewhere in a vineyard, we're much more familiar with the grapes at New Song Church. These grapes will be squashed and turned into wine through the sacrifice of hard labor. And now, through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, who today tells us that He is the true bread that comes from heaven. Those who believe in Him will never be hungry or thirsty again. These grains of wheat and these grapes will be turned into bread and wine, and Christ for us will turn them into the body and blood of His sacrificial love for us. Sometimes we can give thanks to God for trials and tribulations in our lives. That may sound counterproductive, but you imagine that journey that those Israelites had to get to the point of feeding themselves in their own land, and they were able to give thanks to God for getting them through those journeys. Today I want to invite Evie to come forth and to share a story of thanksgiving for her own tribute and her own testimony. So let's welcome Evie.
For anybody who doesn't know me yet, I'm Evie Walleen, a 22-month survivor of pancreatic cancer, for which I am most thankful. If you knew me prior to these last couple of years, you would know that I was pretty easygoing. I loved to laugh, I give hugs, and I moved here for the sunshine. In the fall of 2017, my world changed. Over time, with no specific starting date, changes appeared. Vague, annoying symptoms showed up, but I could and I would explain them away. Then people seemed different towards me, whispering and being distant, and a lot fewer hugs. Eventually, a friend asked if I was okay. noting that my face and eyes were yellowing. Maybe it wasn't the effects of working harder and longer hours. Just maybe there was a medical reason for my problems. I am so thankful, for she admonished me, "Evie, do not wait. Call the doctor tomorrow." That call resulted in 2 months of tests, finishing with a biopsy showing a tumor in my pancreas. The doctors had bad news and good news. The bad news, he was 99% sure it would be pancreatic cancer, and I needed a Whipple. That was my only option. Now the good news. 2% of the people with pancreatic cancer survive to 5 years and beyond. My mind screamed, "That's the good news?" But he continued, "If you have this Whipple, you have a very good chance of being in that 2%. I cried myself to sleep that night, wondering if I was tough enough for this by myself. The next morning brought the Vegas sun and phone calls to loved ones back in Minnesota and Iowa. My mom did her best to convince me to have my surgery at the world-famous Mayo Clinic near her. But I assured her we have good doctors too, and Minnesota has long, cold, dreary winters. The sunshine I knew I would need was right here. I came to think of the warmth of the sun as my hugs from God. It was as if he were wrapping me in his sheltering arms. He would take care of me in his way, in his time. I knew I would never feel by myself again. So here I stayed with just my husband, my church family, co-workers, neighbors, and some incredible medical staff. My Whipple on January 22nd, 2018 was followed by 4 rounds of chemo and lots of healing and recovery. And here I stand almost 2 years later, thankful for all the big things and all the little things that so often get overlooked. The big things you can probably guess. I survived the surgery, and I'm still alive today. These are the easy things to see and be thankful for. But I'm equally as thankful for the little things that made it possible for the big things to happen. So what are these little things? Here's just a very short list of a very long list. My journal. It gave me a place to focus my fears, tears, pains, and struggles. My husband. John's singing is powerful for me. It can lift my spirits and soothe my soul. How so many of you honored my request when I said, "Don't bring me cards and flowers, just bring me chocolate and make me laugh, or don't come." It kind of backfired though, because for a long time I couldn't eat chocolate, and I ended up with a stockpile. Eventually my taste returned and the chocolate's now gone. Thank you very much. My phone, it did become my lifeline to friends and loved ones over the miles. The sun, it was my daily constant hugs from God. When everything else was going wrong, I could focus on that feeling of not being alone. The meals that were delivered. Honestly, I couldn't eat much, but it was a relief to know that John would have a hot meal. The people that just sat with me, literally sat with me and let me lean on them because I was too weak to sit up by myself. Those of you who had the wherewithal to have the tough conversations with me, I am ever so grateful that you sat me down and talked. That you all took care of everything so that I could focus on my healing, so I could be back among you, strong, laughing, working alongside you again, and hugging you. I'm thankful for the color purple, the color of pancreatic cancer awareness, one of the most difficult to diagnose and sadly, likely soon to be number 2 for cancer deaths. Awareness makes a difference. There's still a long list of little things that I'm thankful for, but I do have time constraints here. So you get the gist of my list. So thank you for listening to my story and the things I'm grateful for these past couple of years. I'll be in the narthex if anybody wants to share a story and a hug. And I wish you days filled with sunshine and hugs.